Starting out, while global trends regarding audiovisual media have shifted towards streaming platforms in industrial countries in recent years, over 1/3 of the global population have never used the internet once, much less shifted to streaming. The majority of the world's population still source their entertainment and news content online. Digital connectivity is far from universal, and digital connectivity with affordable, high-speed, unlimited data plans at a level that allows for the streaming of entertainment products is even less widespread. Yet, regardless of current streaming capabilities, global investors are reliably excited by opportunities to invest in platforms promising to captivate audiences of any size in the world's developing markets. How does this play out in global media markets? The logics of tech investment depart greatly from the logics fueling investment in legacy media. When Hollywood's distributors, for instance, traditionally have planned their global release plan for films of all stripes, from major tentpoles to formulaic back catalog fare, entire markets are left out of distribution schemes. A major Hollywood release can present a global marketing plan whose budget encompasses the entire budget of the film's production, yet includes not a single nation in, for instance, sub-Saharan Africa outside of South Africa, for example. Traditionally, those investing in emerging media markets will only invest in markets in which large networks of formerly owned corporations such as cinema houses can remit profits to distributors. Box office take fuels film profits. In North America and Europe, studios make a percentage of ticket price, with high-end, expensive theaters remitting more profits than budget outlets. The same logic plays out in less industrialized countries worldwide that are screening these types of productions. Movies do get screened in informal venues, even in countries that have formal distribution agreements. Films will screen unofficially on informal village projection setups, even in the same nation, where they also screen in flashy urban multiplex theaters. But formal recording of distribution sales is the financial motor of legacy media's global circulation. Investment in digital global media distribution via streaming and downloadable platforms operates via a completely different set of logics. In legacy media contexts, investment in so-called emerging markets most often means large global media corporations seeking co-production and distribution partners made up of the largest local studios and other major media corporations operating along similar logics of annual reports and publicized distribution figures. When it comes to digital media, investment, no matter the location, is fueled instead by startups and rounds of venture capital. And venture capital firms have an eye on a different marker of profitability than proof of current success. Instead, they value audience assemblage over current profitability. Profit to a venture capitalist is something to be figured out later. Audiences in this context just need to be assembled, in contrast to global investment in legacy media, which seeks to partner with large formal companies profiting off of audiences currently. Investment in digital media, including streaming and other digital distribution platforms, is happy to invest in smaller companies who assembled audiences out of populations that are not currently considered profitable. The very same audiences that were pointedly left out of global distribution and co-production efforts are now valued. Their collective attention is now seen as an asset in and of itself. New partners are being sought, and rather than being the largest player in a corporatized landscape, value now accrues to small companies that can assemble and maintain a hold on a loyal, reliable audience, even if those audiences are known to currently have very limited entertainment budgets. The logics that excluded the world's poorest and least formalized countries from formal global distribution networks have shifted in the excitement of the theorized streaming revolution, with very real implications for global media circulation. The streaming revolution, as it's called in the industrialized world, has actually changed the landscape, even for physical distribution, by altering power dynamics in all global media markets, including those of populations who have not shifted their entertainment consumption to digital platforms. In this talk, I focus on the case of Nigeria, the most populous nation in sub-Saharan Africa. At some estimates, 220 million people. It's estimated that 1 in 5 people in sub-Saharan Africa is Nigerian. Nigeria is a prime example of an extremely populous country that has been largely excluded from global Hollywood release schemes. In Nigeria, obtaining official copies of Hollywood or Bollywood movies for physical circulation or screening at cinema houses is not an option. Outside of a handful of flashy multiplexes in Nigeria's wealthiest malls in the wealthiest cities, aimed at an audience of wealthy Nigerians and expats, going to the movies is not an entertainment option for most, with cinemas largely absent in Nigeria's smaller cities and villages. So to illustrate this, a couple of anecdotes from my research and fieldwork. As part of my research, I attended a Hollywood conference in Los Angeles and went to a panel on global distribution aimed at producers considering how to expand their reach. After a lengthy session on the benefits of making global connections, an audience member asked about distribution in Africa, and the panelists were at a loss for words. One explained that distributing in sub-Saharan Africa would just not be profitable on the whole, and that there are no recommended partners besides perhaps South Africa. In other words, in Hollywood, the dominant perspective is that the whole continent is not somewhere to be considered in global marketing and distribution efforts. In another part of my research, I interviewed the diplomat in charge of U.S. efforts to combat piracy at the U.S. consulate in Lagos, Nigeria's most cosmopolitan city. The diplomat was young, a fan of popular Hollywood fare, and she told me that she, the very face of American anti-piracy efforts in Nigeria's most populous city, seen in local newspapers on the ground overseeing U.S.-funded local police raids of counterfeit goods in Lagos's warehouses, herself purchased unofficial copies, pirated, of Hollywood movies from street vendors on a regular basis, as it's the only way to obtain copies of foreign movies for personal use. Nigeria is not just home to a massive potential audience for foreign content, but about 30 years ago, Nigeria gave birth to an industry of domestic movie production that became a global powerhouse, dominating small screens domestically in Nigeria, but also dominating the screens of most other sub-Saharan African nations, as well as the African diaspora worldwide and beyond. The Nigerian movie industry is known popularly as Nollywood, producing a massive number of titles per year, aimed not at cinema houses, for the most part, but rather at small screens. Initially, small screens meant VHS recordings to be played at home on VCRs, later morphed to VCD technology, physical playback system that resembles a DVD with a memory capacity more resembling that of VHS. Nollywood movies have come to be distributed digitally, but by no means have Nigerian viewers collectively shifted to favor digital consumption. The issues with global distribution, listed on the previous slide, are at play here. A high cost of data, lack of high-speed streaming data, and combined with little trust in online payments from credit cards to subscriptions. The cost of streaming a single movie could regularly run $5 in a country where security guards and other low-paying jobs could earn workers just $100 or $200 per month. And besides the unbearable cost, even businesses paying top dollar struggle to get reliable data speeds. A streaming video startup in Lagos that I analyzed found their best option in their early days to be employees taking physical hard drives with them to Europe to upload their content on reliable high-speed connections. Eventually, that company paid to physically join the last mile of an underwater cable named Main One, running along the coast of West Africa from Portugal, making one of its final stops in Lagos. While Main One running cable along the coast of West Africa is today a good option for businesses that rely on internet connectivity, everyday private citizens generally do not have that option. Streaming video content in Nigeria is only used primarily by the wealthy or those who can use the internet connection at work. Those that can access a free connection at work can use an option that downloads content for future viewing, and then the transfer of digital copies of movies offline via Bluetooth from other phones or from the marketplace stalls of digital media distribution companies is a more common digital distribution option than is streaming. The financial motor of Nollywood has traditionally been distribution of physical copies. When Nollywood was born in the 1990s, it began as a straight-to-VHS industry. The industry's earliest entrepreneurs were electronics vendors in open-air marketplaces. Flooded with VHS to sell as early-generation VHS technologies became remaindered in liquidation warehouses worldwide, these entrepreneurs experimented with creating relatively inexpensive content to go on the videotapes being sold. The first videos were popular, meeting a previously unrealized demand for culturally familiar content that the national broadcaster at the same time was increasingly not serving as privatization shifted resources away from making their own television shows to buying rights to foreign soaps and telenovelas. From the beginning, the industry that emerged operated along the same logics as other global straight-to-video industries, a structure relying on the quantity of predictable, formulaic content rather than the uniqueness of individual titles. Nollywood was, and largely continues to be, an industry with no cinema distribution, and as mentioned before, the physical distribution of movies in Nigeria, like most other industries, operates informally, generating no records of sales. It could be considered to fall somewhere between a gray and black market. The vendors of Nollywood in open-air marketplaces are the same as those that sell unauthorized copies of Hollywood and Bollywood movies. In other words, the official vendors of Nollywood movies could also technically be considered professional pirates. In previous work I've done, I've outlined how power in Nollywood falls to those that control and have knowledge of distribution. The executive producers of Nollywood are most commonly a group known as marketers. The marketers control networks of open-air vendors and use this knowledge of what is selling, where it's selling, and how much it is selling for to fuel their funding decisions. And the marketers closely guard their information about sales. Because of this, external parties continually find it impossible to penetrate their grasp on the industry. External parties don't have knowledge of distribution or profit figures, and because of this, they can't make an actual business plan. The marketers have traditionally enjoyed complete control because they collectively can make sure that no information escapes their collective businesses, and they can make sure others can't distribute along their networks either. An additional source of their power is that they are a very large number of small-scale producers/distributors. If they condensed into a few huge companies, they would likely need to be more transparent as they would be more visible, and they could be individually threatened by tax authorities, government overseers, and foreign or other corporate formal investment. For years, many have tried to penetrate their hold on the industry, but marketers' tight hold on the information they possess and their commitment to continued opacity and externally illegible operations has ensured their continued reign. As streaming has become more popular globally, independent producers in Nigeria have become more hopeful that something can penetrate the marketers' hold. For years, the more creative amongst Nigeria's directors, producers, and creative talent have wanted larger budgets and more creative freedom. But all attempts have ended in failure, as marketers could blackball and otherwise ice out those challengers, excluding them from distribution networks and red-lighting their proposed productions via the close ties that link their opaque, impenetrable networks along kinship lines. In recent years, though, the system has finally seen a real threat. As Godwin Simon has recently researched, while digital distribution has not taken hold in Nigeria's domestic audiences, streaming platforms have united a tiny cosmopolitan domestic audience with more easily monetized diaspora audiences proficient in online payments. There are a number of startup streaming platforms that specialize in Nollywood content. While Netflix has famously entered the Nigerian domestic market, Netflix is known in Nigeria as a streamer of primarily Western content and is subscribed to by a tiny elite audience, many with personal experiences overseas who subscribe for Western content. Netflix has financed a cluster of high-budget, high-profile Nigerian titles, but they serve only a fraction of Nigeria's domestic appetite for movie fare. Nollywood is a staple of background, small screens across Nigerian homes, buses, marketplaces, and other day-to-day settings. A handful of splashy, high-budget Netflix productions will not be able to meet the demand for high-quantity, formulaic content that can play while viewers are doing chores, working, socializing, or engaging in family time. The most popular purveyors of digital content in Nigeria are YouTube channels for free everyday fare including popular family stories and village epics, as well as YouTube TV channels featuring glossy fare sponsored by banks and other companies that advertise upwardly mobile lifestyles in their flashy urban content. But also a startup named Iroko TV. There's multiple startups, but this one is most successful. Iroko has carved a name for itself in producing mid and higher budget glossy fare aimed at a better off and upwardly mobile younger audiences. Iroko and other streaming platforms have made a significant impact, even though digital fare is only distributed to a tiny domestic audience. The global streaming revolution has impacted Nollywood as an industry in the following ways. They draw together a cosmopolitan audience that was previously unreachable by combining an elite domestic audience with diaspora viewers. One effect of the assemblage of elite domestic viewers and diaspora viewers into one consolidated audience has been the emergence of a new glossy style featuring young, upwardly mobile characters in an urban environment, shown consuming and displaying cosmopolitan lifestyle markers. Diaspora audiences used to be an afterthought, as even they preferred content set in Nigeria, seeing it as more authentic. As Iroko and other streamers consciously sought to define their audience, cosmopolitan lifestyles relevant to the diaspora became integrated into important domestic fare, and the genre has expanded and developed its own subgenres. Another effect of assembling this audience, however, has been to massively shift power relations in the industry. Simon has shown that while independent producers have long tried to escape the terms of the marketers' hold on the industry, the very existence of streaming as an option has finally, at long last, upended the system. High-end streaming contracts are difficult to get, small in number, with great competition to achieve. But, as Simon has shown, their very existence has created a sort of hope economy. Independent producers and directors feel for the first time that they have another option, as do many content creators in industrialized media markets. Independent producers in Nigeria believe that profits will come soon. They may take contracts that are actually very similar to the contracts with marketers they have long objected to, but streamers are afforded more patience as partners. Entering into unfavorable terms with one of the new streaming distributors is seen as a partnership as opposed to an abuse of power, with both parties assumed to be equally on austere terms, waiting for the market to balance out. In short, the marketer's power has been upended, most likely for good, due to the industrial culture of hope that surrounds streaming startups in many markets worldwide. And we see that one more effect of assembling this global audience has been to create a window for formal global investment, including venture capital, to enter Nollywood for the first time. Before Nollywood had dedicated streaming platforms, indeed, before the world had dedicated streaming platforms, the world noticed Nollywood. But global media giants did not see the industry as something in which they could conceivably invest. Yet Iroko TV has assembled millions in venture capital in its first years, and has more recently achieved the sale of its full-scale production arm to Canal Plus, the French satellite TV operator. Investing in so-called emerging media markets has traditionally demanded a specific shape, specifically solid facts and figures around distribution and profits, as well as, usually, a small number of large formal corporations in charge of executive production and nationwide distribution. My most recent research has looked at the creation of these facts and figures by global media institutions. I examine the institutions that create and circulate these figures, based, they say, on deep industry analysis, but by their very nature, unable to penetrate, for instance, marketers' networks, unable to truly make the informal legible to external scrutiny. But their best guesses and sketches, once they bear the official stamp of these organizations, fuel a global appetite for investment in emerging media markets and the proposed next billion users. The language, then, of accountability, transparency, and legibility is coaxed out of what is known of Nollywood's informal industry and packaged and sold to formal global investors. Some examples of these institutions are on this slide, including national statistics bureaus, international intergovernment organizations like UNESCO's annual figures or World Bank special reports, commissioning of industry reports by Big Four accounting firms. Iroko TV, too, commissioned a Big Four industry report around one of its early successful rounds of financing. not only have streaming platforms created a powerful alternative option for independent producers, but they've also set themselves apart by providing unparalleled transparency about viewership, budgets, profit margins, and all other figures at their disposal. The CEO of Iroko TV has run a business that far outpaces Netflix in its transparency and publicizing of its finances, and this level of transparency is designed as a core tool in Iroko's battle against the marketers, setting streaming platforms apart as a new kind of partner, in this case, one that provides safety and assurance in an otherwise opaque industry. At heart, finishing here, the Nigerian case study provides a key example of ways in which platform-based digital distribution opens opportunities, for instance, for new content creators and producers to gain ground. And it also opens the doors for global venture capital, global entertainment investors to stake a claim in this industry, even when there is a very low rate of viewership compared to the size of the population. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jade. Is there a question in the room?
I guess can I ask, thanks for the presentation. I really like the last emphasis on the kind of mobilization of these data gatherers to promote them. What is the benefit of the attack on the marketers, I guess? The marketers are means of distribution.
Yeah.
And
it depends on where you're sitting, and I'm certainly not making a value judgment on who should be running the industry. Like the argument can easily be made like this. These are a group of small-scale entrepreneurs who've created functional and arguably somewhat sustainable production distribution networks where, like, you know, before them, like those who were trying to make entertainment products that reflected Nigerian culture might have been trying to get international grants or government funding, which is like, you know, these would also be films that were largely like not even aired in Nigeria. So the argument can easily be made for that. In terms of a value judgment, Alessandro Jedlowski, I like in something he wrote, he set it out as saying this is not like the battle against the marketers. It's not like a battle for like saying we, you know, the marketers can resist large, major, formal global media corporations. It's not saying that it's any kind of battle against capitalism. It's just small-scale capitalism versus large-scale, formal corporate capitalism. Within the industry, you will find the sort of the more creative side of the industry. So, like, you know, sometimes you know, foreign observers might find that to be you know, more sympathetic, that like, oh, these directors and producers and actors really just want to make artistic content. So sometimes they get that kind of spin in like international coverage that like, you know, these are the people that they're fighting the good fight. But, you know, the reality is if you go to the industry, the more creative end of the industry would like to see global investment to get these bigger budgets and have more creative freedom. And at the same time, the people who've been executive producers for years, the marketers, don't want to see that. So it's just like you can take a side or you cannot. You know, in terms of being an analyzer of the industry or being an observer, you can sort of, well, you know, you can sort of describe what is going on, which has been that the marketers were able to sort of swat down like a whole variety of different challenges. They've been, you know, there's like research, like I've done research in part on like where it is that they get their power from. There's sort of long histories of like anti-colonial resistance and kinship-based networks in the face of like the ethnic group that the marketers are from has long been a stateless group, like even in pre-colonial times, and sort of utilizing the sort of exact same or very similar networks today. You know, all like someone who's analyzing it, all you can really do is say that they have resisted those challenges for years, and this appears to be maybe the first time that there is a significant challenge, and it seems to be due to two things. Like one would be the ways in which startups can generate venture capital by not winning the market yet. It is like a future-based type of investment, more so than legacy media investment. And two, the sort of hope labor, that sort of has the creative end of the industry willing to take the same kinds of unfavorable contracts as they would otherwise be rejecting. So in both cases, you can see it as the reality hasn't changed, but the sort of hype around like what's going to happen in the future is what has changed.